My name is Magesh Naidu. I'm part of the Circular Development Team at ICLEI's World Secretariat based in Bonn, Germany. It's great to see so many familiar faces again from Brazil, South America, and the rest of the world, and to meet new colleagues and ICLEI family members. I think we've been spending a lot of time in Brazil recently to deliver training on various aspects like the circular economy, on urbanization, and I think we've seen a remarkable increase in the number of events with a sustainability focus in Brazil because of the leadership around the topic. The session is being translated, so please keep your headsets close by, and we also have sign language interpretation. We will be having question and answer sessions, but at the end of the two sessions, so we have two sessions which we'll talk about in a little bit. Please feel free then to keep your questions on hand when we call for them. The session is divided into two parts. The first part we will be talking about kind of zero waste in general terms. We won't be going into the specifics because of time constraints and the importance of the circular economy. We will then also touch on the Global Plastics Treaty and I guess the importance of international processes for work that cities undertake. We will then have a panel discussion from a few distinguished delegates around the topic of plastics, and we then are looking forward to the signing of the Plastics Declaration, which we will talk about shortly. This will be led by Gino. The second part of the session rather, takes a deep dive and a spotlight on the GIZ Circular City Lab program. And this will be led by Olga Horn, also from the World Secretariat, in discussion with Secretary Mora of the City of Medellin. We'll then go into two presentations that will share a bit more detail on good examples of reuse activities in cities, and this will be presented by Mayor Brockett from the City of Boulder and Mayor Lee from Goyang City. We'll then wrap up with questions and answers because this engagement is important, so it's not just about us communicating in one direction, it's about having a dialogue. But there's always a trick up my sleeve, and before we get into the detailed session, I have a question. These are plastic bottles. I would like to pose a question, and feel free to put your hand up. It's two parts. Can you guess the weight of this plastic bottles in grams? And as a second part, what it represents. So, can you guess how much this weighs? There's about 12 bottles in here. They're 310 milliliter bottles, just the normal PET bottles, and what it is that it represents. Would anybody like to take a guess? We brought some chocolates from Bonn as an incentive. Any takers? Or I can point out somebody that looks like they might have an answer. How about in the with the white top, the lady with the white top? Apologies, I don't know your name. Would you like to take a guess as to what this weighs and what it signifies? Can we get a microphone?
Sou Jaqueline, de São Francisco de Paula, Rio Grande do Sul. Eu acho que tem umas 100 gramas.
You're close, but about 100% off. But what do you think this signifies? In terms of maybe it's consumption of one person of plastics per month, or per family for a week. Do you have any guesses on what this could be?
em média 500 gramas?
Thanks for the answer. So I'll share the correct answer, but it's still a good answer. This weight is about 255 grams of plastic. And this equates to more or less the amount of plastic, specifically microplastic, that we are ingesting, that we are swallowing or breathing in a year. This amount, no? So quite substantial, and this is why we are here, to start eliminating waste and ensuring this material and other material is managed properly. So, but you still qualify for the chocolates though, which we'll give to you in a little bit. So moving on. When we talk about zero waste, what do we mean? How closely linked is it to the circular economy, or the green economy, or the bioeconomy, or industrial symbiosis? We could spend hours and days and weeks talking about the topic, but at its fundamental core, zero waste aims to ensure that no waste is lost. So we don't dispose of the waste we use into landfill, that all of the materials are recovered and recycled and put back into a manufacturing process. It's closely linked to the circular economy, which goes one step further and also talks about the restoration of the natural environment. If you look at the traditional way economies have worked, it's largely take, so extract, make in terms of production, and discard straight into a landfill. And this discarding process is essentially throwing money away and resources that the planet does not have, because a lot of these resources are finite. So we're trying to connect the end of life back to the beginning of the cycle to ensure the resources are maintained at a high value and we don't have waste in seeping into our natural environment. Just with an eye to the time, I'm going to move on promptly, but we're going to be around until the end of the week, and we'd love to have this type of discussion in detail with everybody. So now we go on to a presentation from Iris Krikula, and Iris is going to take us through a little bit about the plastics negotiations and contextualize it for us. And while it might seem like the plastic negotiations take place at an international level, which is the UN level, specifically the United Nations Environmental Assembly, the specific points that are agreed upon between countries directly impact cities, perhaps not immediately, but eventually through policies, strategies, and strategic plans. So at this point, it's important for us to ensure that when these national negotiations are happening at an international level, we bring the voice of cities and consideration into these discussions. So maybe I can introduce Iris now. Iris works as a circular economy project manager at the city of Turku in Finland. Her role is to manage the continuous development and implementation of the circular strategy in Turku, which is aiming to become a carbon neutral city by 2029 and resource-wise by 2040. I'd also like to say Iris is representing Mayor Ave, who is ICLEI's first vice president, and also our political lead for the circular economy work within ICLEI. Iris, I'd like to welcome you to stage to take us through the slides.
Hello everyone, this is really exciting. I'm so happy for the opportunity to speak here today. This is also my first time with these three simultaneous stages going on at the same time, so really exciting. Maybe if I jump straight to the point, as Magas already introduced me. So I'm going to give you a quick overview of the magnitude of the problem of global plastics. So the amount of municipal solid waste is estimated to grow to 3.8 billion tons by 2050, and plastics make up to between 10 to 13% of municipal solid waste. Over 400 million tons of plastic are produced every year. And what is alarming is that 20 million of this plastic ends up in the environment every year. And in addition, it is now been found that microplastics have entered the human bloodstream. So maybe the next slide. So yes, then I'm going to tell you something about what is the Global Plastic Treaty. So approximately every second year, the United Nations Environmental Assembly, UNEA, is convened. It is the highest decision-making body on environmental matters globally. During UNEA 5.2, that took place in early 2022, Resolution 5 to 14 was adopted by members of national governments. The resolution was titled End Plastic Pollution Towards an International Legally Binding Instrument. It seeks to ensure that an international legally binding instrument on plastic pollution is developed, including the marine environment. Simply put, the resolution calls on all countries that are members to the United Nations and UNEP processes to develop an agreement that will end plastic pollution. This content of the agreement would range from seeking to promote sustainable production and consumption practices for plastics, through, for example, circular practices, to promoting national and international cooperation, to developing national action plans, and to encouraging action by all stakeholders. Wait a minute. Yeah. So what is the progress so far? A series of intergovernmental negotiation committees, the INCs, was planned to be hosted by cities and countries around the world. The first INC took place in Uruguay and largely centered on the elections of the chairperson and other persons to oversee the process. Importantly, the rules of procedure that would guide the entire negotiation process was discussed but not fully adopted. ICLE did follow the process and made a written submission. During INC2, our local and subnational involvement was accelerated. Before the official start of the INC2, the Paris International Forum to End Plastic Pollution in Cities was convened by UNEP, the City of Paris, ICLE and other partners. And during this forum, cities from around the world shared their best practices for addressing plastic pollution, while also spending time discussing important points with the INC Executive Secretary, GOT Martur Philippe. During the actual INC session, ICLE delivered an opening statement with the government of Quebec. Delivering the closing statement, in between ICLE also worked closely with Japanese cities to participate in an official side event. While lots of advocacy was undertaken, the reference to cities, local or subnational governments in the actual plastics treaty document remained limited. A revised zero draft was published ahead of INC3. During INC, references to local and subnational governments began to appear. Planning was also set in motion for the launch of local and subnational governments coalition that we will hear about in a little bit. A day before the official start of the INC4, the Canadian government hosted a partnership day. During this day, ICLE, together with the governments of Quebec and Catalonia, along with United Cities and local governments, launched the local and subnational governments coalition. Furthermore, during INC4, the frequency of inclusion or mention of cities, local and subnational governments was greatly increased, with frequent references being made in official statements by national governments. So the last currently planned round of negotiations will take place in Busan, South Korea, in late November this year. It is expected that by this time the plastics treaty will be at an advanced stage. So our president, quite newly elected president, Alexander Stubb, is famous for making 3 efficient points. But unfortunately, I'm not Mr. Alexander Stubb, the president. So I will introduce you to 8 points, which are all very important. So why is it so important for local and subnational governments? We are the closest level to the people. Cities, local and subnational governments are normally the first level of government that is accessible to residents. Understanding local nuances, challenges and opportunities. The second one, the regulatory powers. Most often cities have direct regulatory powers to manage what goes on in the territories. This includes policies and bylaws. These are important elements that need to be aligned to the evolving national regulatory environment in a co-evolution manner. And third one, replicating and scaling. Cities are more quick-moving than national governments and can implement activities at a fast pace, allowing us to scale best practices from other cities. 4 is about knowledge creation. Cities and subnational governments can funnel local knowledge into substantive knowledge products and tools. This is while utilizing the insights and expertise from local stakeholders. And 5, the consumption in urban areas and impacts. Majority of the consumption happens in urban centers, which leaves cities with a lot of power to shift consumption patterns. But at the same time, plastic pollution directly affects urban life, such as when plastic pollution clogs stormwater drains, which contributes to flooding. Emission reduction potential. Cities' climate action plans can be greatly enhanced by including elements of sustainable consumption and a focus on reducing plastic consumptions, which will have a direct impact on the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. A few examples I would like to pick up from the city of Turku. We have launched a 1.5 degree lifestyles campaign to citizens, and also since 2020 we have been calculating consumption-based emissions, so that in addition to area-based emissions that cities usually concentrate on, we are able to tackle the emissions also across borders. Then on 7th is about inclusivity. Cities can be the clue in participatory approaches to facilitate dialogues with local stakeholders. And the last but not the least, which is about just transition. In the process of closing the tap on plastics, vast number of industries will be impacted. The treaty must be rooted in the principles of a just transition to mitigate, among others, any negative impacts on the lives of workers and residents. So the last slide I have is about this filter pilot project that was launched in Turku in last year actually, together with a company called Water Consulting. So you might think there's a spelling mistake, that it should read Water Consulting, but it's Water actually. And you can also see the picture of a mayor standing in the middle in black, and the deputy mayor on her left side. And what they're holding in their hands is actually this solid waste that they've been able to pick up from the filters placed in the wells. So this project is about stormwater management, and it's aimed at improving water quality. Because in Finland, the point source pollutants coming from example from the municipal or industrial sources are quite well managed and controlled. But non-point source pollution is more difficult to control. Stormwater is the biggest source of microplastics and other pollutants in water bodies. And this project is actually tackling this challenge. So in the project, 60 filters are placed in grading wells. So if you don't know what a grading well is, it's in the picture at the corner. And around the city to prevent microplastics and other pollutants from entering the nearby water bodies. From pollutants, 80% are solid or attached to the solid material. Therefore, the filters are very, very effective in collecting the waste or the pollutants. The project also provides knowledge about hotspots, the so-called hotspots around the city, where filters should be placed to have the biggest impact. And the early results or the studies suggest that the biggest sources of pollutants are actually construction sites and traffic areas. So maybe that doesn't come as a surprise. So according to a model developed by Aalto University, filters should cover 20% of all grading wells to reduce 50% of the stormwater pollutant load. But I know we have a fantastic lineup of speakers from other cities and subnational governments sharing their knowledge on the topics. So I will stop here and hand over to Makas. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That was great.
Yeah, thank you.
Let me hang on to that. Thanks. Great. Iris, thank you very much for that. Very insightful. And I think this is a fantastic example of where city has played leadership in guiding ICLEI's work and taking it to an international stage. So this was a fantastic segue into our panel. And as I invite our panel, please come up and take a seat, and we can go straight into it. First up, we have, and please forgive me if I'm pronouncing names wrong. English is my first language, and I've been very bad in learning other languages. First up, we have Evaldo Azevedo. He's a graduate in business administration with a specialization in public management. Since 2022, he has held the position of waste coordinator at the Secretariat of Environment, Infrastructure and Logistics of the state of Sao Paulo. Pleasure to have you. Perfect. Next, we have Mauro Haddad. Mauro is a lawyer with a master's degree in environmental law and works in the field of environmental and waste management. He is the director of Sao Paulo Regula, and thank you for being here. Great. Next up, we have Mariana Maya. Mariana is also a lawyer with 14 years of experience in the sustainability field, specializing in environmental law and management. Currently, she holds the position of Superintendent of Waste and Circular Economy for the state of Rio de Janeiro. Please, thank you for being here. So we have two lawyers on stage. Please be careful what we say. Next, we have Jason. Jason Nord has served as the director of the Quebec Government Office in Sao Paulo since 2020. He has more than 15 years of experience in project management and international relations. The Quebec government is a very close friend of ICLEI, and particularly Jean Lemire is unfortunately not here with us today, but in spirit, I guess. And last but definitely not least, we have Shannon Boughton. Shannon is a scientist, environmentalist, and business strategist who has dedicated a career to creating a more sustainable future for people and planet. She's currently the CEO of Delterra and spearheads the organization's vision to create a world where human activities protect and restore a healthy planet. Pleasure to have you. I think it might be easier if I stand so I'm not blocked by the lectern, but we can have it as a dialogue. If I could also request, we are trying to catch up a little bit in time, so if we can stick to the allotted time allocations, this will be fantastic. So let's jump straight into it. Jason, I'd like to kick off a question to you, and it touches on some of what Iris was saying. We've just heard about the Plastics Treaty and these international negotiations. What is the primary way in which cities, local and subnational governments could get involved in the process?
Thank you. Vou responder em português, tá bom? Sim. Ou em francês, mas acho melhor em português. Então, sou Jason, diretor do escritório do Quebec, do governo do Quebec aqui em São Paulo. O governo do Quebec tem muitas representações no mundo e o mandato das representações é bem transversal. E uma parte desse mandato é de fazer a promoção da proteção do meio ambiente e da biodiversidade. Então, como já vocês sabem que o Quebec, o governo de Quebec, está bem envolvido em grupos internacionais para essa promoção da proteção do meio ambiente. Por isso que o Quebec, justamente ao ICLEI, ao governo da Catalunha, lançou o projeto da coalição contra a poluição plástica. E o governo a equipe do escritório do Quebec e também da delegação do governo da Catalunha que fizeram essa promoção para os estados brasileiros para se juntarem a essa coalição. Por exemplo, o estado de São Paulo e também o estado de Rio de Janeiro. E então essa coalição foi criada com o apoio de muitos parceiros subnacionais, como o C40 e Regions 4. O Regions 4 vai fazer a Assembleia Geral a semana que vem lá no Rio de Janeiro e o Quebec vai participar também. Então, para responder a essa pergunta, a forma principal realmente de assinar essa coalição e de aderir e de integrar essas discussões já para começar a falar da posição de cada governo subnacional, de cada cidade, sobre essa questão da poluição plástica. Então, realmente tem que assinar essa coalição para integrar essas discussões e falar da sua posição sobre isso com os outros membros da coalição.
Perfect. Jason, thank you very much for that response. And I just want to highlight something that you said. You mentioned a number of institutions and organizations that have come together to launch the coalition. And without partnerships that have a lot of trust and coordination and communication, these big strategic activities never flourish and never even start. So this is very important. Okay, so I think, how about now? Is English on English, Portuguese on Portuguese, Spanish on Spanish? Yeah, if we can not change the channels, please. Perfect. So let's move on to the next question. Now I guess we turn to the state of Sao Paulo. Evaldo, if I can pose the next question to you. So we know that waste management is an important topic for you. I would like to understand from your perspective, what are the challenges that you face as a city and specifically on plastics?
Bom dia, boa tarde a todos. O Estado de São Paulo, como fomentador de políticas para os municípios, nós temos hoje no Estado 645 municípios, municípios com 20 toneladas diárias de resíduos, municípios como o município de São Paulo com 12 mil toneladas diárias de resíduos. Ou seja, uma heterogeneidade muito grande, com muitos números menores em alguns lugares, com a grande maioria com os números menores, mas alguns municípios com uma geração muito grande. Implementando as metas da política estadual de resíduos sólidos, a política nacional determina que os estados e os municípios tenham políticas, planos de gestão de resíduos, no caso do estado, planos de gestão integrada de resíduos nos municípios. Implementando essas políticas, nós nos deparamos com algumas questões no estado de São Paulo que são cruciais para uma boa gestão e, no caso, o plástico. Nós temos, por exemplo, no estado, 50% dos municípios que não têm coleta seletiva. Então, se você não tem coleta seletiva, automaticamente você não tem o plástico para trabalhar e poder fazer uma segunda matéria com ele e desenvolver a circularidade deste material. Você tem ainda no estado de São Paulo 200 destinos de resíduos que têm os critérios técnicos, mas não são ambientalmente adequados. Ou seja, você está destinando uma quantidade de material para destinos que não têm critérios ambientais, o que é uma catástrofe no ano de 2024 ainda. É muito ruim a gente estar destinando material para locais que não sejam locais preparados para receber esses materiais. Nós temos diversas metas, 48 metas de gestão de resíduos. O plano estadual tem 48 metas de gestão de resíduos, metas de circularidade dos plásticos, meta de destinação melhor de material, metas de gestão aprimorada. Porém, a gente tem ainda algumas dificuldades para se fazer antes de tratar especificamente da circularidade, do poder que o plástico tem em você fazer melhores embalagens e você desenvolver melhores embalagens. Então, eu tenho um problema principal hoje, qual é? Trazer coleta seletiva, por exemplo, para 50% dos municípios do estado. 350 municípios não têm coleta seletiva. Eu tenho 50% dos municípios que andam mais de 200 quilômetros para destinar o seu resíduo, ou seja, vai contra todos os tratados que o Estado tem para mitigação dos gases de efeitos aí que a gente acaba despejando na atmosfera. Então, antes de tratar especificamente do plástico, nós temos algumas missões, algumas tarefas a serem desenvolvidas que carecem de um pouco mais de urgência. Obviamente que você não vai deixar de trabalhar com plástico, são trabalhos concomitantes. Você trabalha na destinação melhor dos resíduos, mas você também trabalha com uma possível circularidade dos plásticos. O Estado tem um pouco ainda que avançar. A gente tem uma situação confortável, mas tem muito ainda para avançar, para poder dizer que a gente tem uma boa destinação de todos os materiais, com os seus segmentos específicos.
Perfect. Thank you for that response. You mentioned 12,000 tons. This was just 250 grams, so we can imagine how much volume we're talking about. But I think you're doing a fantastic job so far. The city and the state is looking really nice. I'd like to maybe now take a jump to the state of Rio de Janeiro and pose to Mariana a similar question. Do you see the situation in a similar way as Evaldo, or what is your perspective on this matter?
Bom, os meus desafios, eu acabei de descobrir que são um pouco menores do que os de São Paulo. No Rio de Janeiro nós temos 92 municípios, dos quais 40 apenas têm coleta seletiva. Então, a gestão adequada de resíduo ainda não está sendo feita na maior parte dos municípios que eu tenho, bem longe dos seus 300, viu? Além disso, com relação especificamente ao lixo do plástico, à poluição plástica, eu tenho 27 municípios na região costeira que contempla 60% do meu território e 80% da minha população. Então, a maior parte da minha população vive na região costeira, é impactada e impacta bastante com relação à poluição plástica, e aí eu diria que não só a plástica, mas a poluição como um todo. A gente tem desafios que, quando tocam a gestão local de resíduos, e aí cabe ao município essa gestão, impactam, por exemplo, a Baía de Guanabara. A gente tem um projeto que os pescadores saem para pescar lixo na Baía de Guanabara. E não tem uma saída que eles façam que eles não voltem com um sofá. Então, o plástico é um problema, mas quando a gente pensa no impacto local e na implementação pelos subnacionais, a gente tem que entender que eu ainda preciso trabalhar bastante a cultura da população, do que consome, do que usa, reduzir esse consumo, mas também na gestão pública.
Thank you for those responses, Mariana. You're touching on an important point about the fishermen going out and catching a sofa. I think in the next few years, the projections are that there will be more pollution emanating from humans than fish and marine life in the oceans. And this is an example that we're starting to actually see in real life and not just have it in a theoretical form. Next, I'd like to jump to Mauro. The city of Sao Paulo, I guess, it's a beautiful city. I'm very glad to be here. Thank you. What are some of the challenges that you see in the city from a plastic pollution specifically? I guess we've heard from 2 states. Do you see it in a similar way from a city, or how would you describe it?
Vamos lá. Primeiro, agradecer o convite do ICLEI para estar aqui. Um evento gigantesco, né, dessa importância da gente estar discutindo uma questão mundial e entender como que São Paulo participa disso. O Evaldo falou aqui, a cidade de São Paulo produz hoje 12 mil toneladas por dia, que são coletadas e destinadas para 2 aterros sanitários. Nós acabamos de fazer um novo contrato, uma nova modelagem, onde a gente inclui nessa questão metas ambientais, então toda essa questão de circularidade, coleta seletiva, e aí o Evaldo falava, né, que metade das cidades tem a coleta seletiva, nós temos coleta seletiva, mas não universalizada, a gente não atende a cidade inteira. Então a primeira meta do contrato é exatamente a universalização da coleta seletiva, e aí já boa parte, né, do atendimento, boa parte da coleta seletiva hoje são plásticos em geral, né, vários tipos de plástico, e uma série de novas formas de coleta através do contrato desse material seco, né, da coleta seletiva. Então, pontos de entrega voluntária, pontos em condomínios, em grandes condomínios, que é a realidade aqui da cidade de São Paulo. É uma cidade de 12 milhões de habitantes que tem, as pessoas vivem de forma diferente. Então, você tem bairros pouco adensados, bairros muito adensados, verticalizados, né, grandes edifícios, onde é mais fácil da gente fazer a coleta. E a gente está incluindo nesses contratos, um contrato de concessão, um contrato de 20 anos, tecnologia, engenharia, separação mecanizada desse material, e onde a gente espera alcançar pelo menos 40% de separação para a coleta seletiva. Além disso, a gente tem feito outros trabalhos, não na gestão do contrato de coleta e destinação do resíduos. A Aline Cardoso, que está aqui hoje, é parceira da ICLEI, era secretária de Desenvolvimento Econômico, começou conosco no momento de transição da política de resíduos, um programa chamado São Paulo Coopera, SP Coopera, né, de apoio aos catadores. Então, nós partimos de 20 para hoje 60 cooperativas atendidas, com cerca de 1.500 cooperados, 1.500 famílias atendidas nesse programa, que são atendidas por essa coleta seletiva. E nós já temos alguns caminhões rodando na cidade com gás biometano produzido no próprio aterro. Mais um exemplo de circularidade, de economia circular. Enfim, então nós temos buscado alternativas, não só na coleta. Estamos fazendo aqui um novo modelo de governança na cidade, envolvendo Secretaria do Verde e do Meio Ambiente, a SP Regula, Secretaria de Limpeza, Seclima, que faz os contratos que a gente chama aqui de varrição, que é a limpeza pública, né, de vias, diferente da coleta domiciliar. No nosso contrato é coleta domiciliar, coleta seletiva e coleta de saúde. E aí a gente tem mais a Secretaria de Desenvolvimento Econômico, Secretaria de Governo, formando uma governança que vai agora atualizar o PGIRS, o Plano de Gestão Integrada de Resíduos, para a gente poder, como o Evaldo falou, né, entrar nesses detalhes dos especificidades do plástico e tal. Mas a gente tem uma série de legislações, uma série de leis, a própria Câmara Municipal discutindo isso, restringindo o uso do plástico. E na fala anterior, a gente falou aqui da regulação, talvez essa seja um exemplo aqui para o Brasil, né? Essa regulação em nível nacional do mercado de plástico.
Perfect. Mauro, thank you for that very insightful overview. And I think we're seeing elements of the scale of the problem. You mentioned 12 million inhabitants, but also very progressive targets and a vision that you want to achieve. But you also mentioned technical studies. And we have to then ask the question, where does the resources for technical studies come from? And these are one of the specific aspects we're highlighting in the plastics treaty is that, for example, when the resources are being discussed and where the money goes, there has to be an allocation for local and subnational governments to facilitate this. You've also mentioned a few different stakeholders and perhaps sectors. So it appears to me that we would need lots of different stakeholders to come together to solve for this problem. So I'd like to now jump to Shannon. How are you currently working with cities and subnationals to solve the plastics problem?
Thank you very much. I really appreciate being included with this really amazing panel, so thank you for including me here. Delterra is a young nonprofit that is working on scalable solutions to human challenges that we've created in the world to improve those systems for the better of both people and the planet. We work on the waste system and basically material circularity by working across the entire system. We think about it a little bit like a supply and demand challenge in terms of the post-consumer municipal waste. So we work with cities on building recycling programs into existing waste management systems where they exist. And in some countries where we work, like Indonesia, we are actually building the entire waste management system as we go. And then on the other side, we also work with corporate players and foundations to help build markets for the offtake of that material. And then we have programs that are also working with consumer packaged goods companies to redesign their packaging so that they can actually understand where the destination of their packaging could be in the countries in which they're working, because not all packaging is recyclable in the same way in different geographies. And so as they're making decisions about the design of their packaging, they can change and shift they can change that for different markets. So specifically, if we deep dive a little bit into how we work with cities, we think about the cities as being that supply of that material. So what we're trying to do is get as much of the material back into the value chain as possible. And I will say that although plastic is a major issue, when we talk about zero waste, we have to talk about all waste, right? Which includes organic waste, which is also a huge methane production problem. So we really believe in solving for the entire waste stream and not just cherry picking certain high value materials out of the system. We want to make sure that we are solving for the low value materials, which are what ends up in the environment most often. So when we work with cities, we start with a lot of municipal capability building. We have a series of diagnostics that we do with cities where we go in and we talk to them about where are they strong and where do they need to do some more work in terms of their own architecture around city management and waste management. We also will help them with things like different types of contracting, for example, waste management company contracts, and building capabilities around understanding what the challenges are around waste. We also do a lot of behavior change work. We're really proud of the work that we do in behavior change, where we work with both citizens and businesses to help them to understand how and why to separate their waste. So the first thing that we're going to do is we go in and we do focus groups with a community to understand what would make this community choose to separate their waste, right? This is an extra effort that you're asking people to do in their businesses and in their homes. And we find this is a really fascinating cultural space because it's very different from one country to the next. So, and even from one city to the next. So we've done a lot of work in Argentina, where we started working in Argentina and Indonesia. In the slum that we started working at in the center of Buenos Aires, the transition required that we actually talk about keeping the streets clean, because mothers were worried about their children playing in streets full of waste. When we started working in an industrial town called Oliveria, then we were also talking about how having recycling in your programs, in your waste management program, makes you a modern city, because they are a very industrial city and they want to be modern. So finding the messaging that works for that particular culture and that community is really important. Then we also work with operational efficiency challenges. So it's very important to maintain the trust of the population as they separate their waste, that you are going to keep that waste separated. So we work with collection and sortation services in countries like Brazil and in Argentina. That means working with cooperatives of waste pickers. In Indonesia, they are not organized, so it's also working with the informal sector, but in an unorganized fashion. And making sure that we are putting as much efficiency into that system as possible, so that you are actually reducing the cost of delivering those services, but also maintaining the value of the waste. And then we help the cities to connect with offtake markets for the materials that can be collected today or can be recycled today. We've codified all of this into a 6 dimensions, a framework that is available on our website, as is the city survey. And we'd be happy to chat with any of you about the work that we do. I know you have a short time, so.
Thank you for that input, and sorry to cut you short. We are racing against the clock, as they say. But I think an important point is sometimes we underestimate the value of working between multiple stakeholders in business. This is something we've been trying to do within the circular development work of ICLEI through, for example, our city business accelerator methodologies and programs. So I have run out of chocolates. I have nothing else to offer, but for the next round of questions, if we can try our best to keep it to 60 seconds, we'll appreciate that. I'd like to jump back to Evaldo. I know we heard about some of the challenges, but I want to flip the question and I want to hear about opportunities and solutions. How do you view this?
No Estado, com todas essas dificuldades que eu falei há pouco atrás, a gente identificando essa necessidade de uma melhor gestão desses materiais, o Estado, acompanhando a Política Nacional de Resíduos, ele propõe para os municípios arranjos regionais, onde o município que aderir a este arranjo regional, ele recebe todas as modelagens necessárias para que a gestão deste material, desde a coleta, pode ser desde a coleta, mas pode ser também desde o transbordo para frente, coleta, transporte, transbordo, valorização e encaminhamento para os aterros somente do rejeito. Este processo todo ser feito através de políticas de PPPs, ou seja, o Estado modelar essas PPPs para esses arranjos regionais e colocar à disposição dos mercados, do privado. É isso que a gente tem feito, é um programa que foi lançado pelo governador no último dia 5, Dia Mundial do Meio Ambiente. É um programa que procura fomentar junto aos municípios que têm dificuldade em se fazer gestão de resíduos, aglomerando, fazendo aglomerações, consórcios regionais para melhorar a escala e garantir o interesse privado na gestão desse material e colocar à disposição. Isso é algo que a gente pretende colocar no início de 2026 à disposição do mercado. É desta forma que a gente está tratando ultimamente.
Fantastic. Thank you for that insight. I think we should jump to Mariana for a similar question, but specifically opportunities around the local and subnational government coalition to end plastic pollution. What would be the key takeaways, opportunities that we could take into these negotiations, in your opinion?
Tá, você me pergunta especificamente sobre o Tratado Global do Plástico, é isso?
It's more on the opportunities or the solutions to solve the plastics pollution problem, on what you would ideally need in your city
bom,
that we
tá
could
ótimo.
take through. Yeah.
Tá ótimo. No Estado, a gente, seguindo também a política nacional, assim como o governo de São Paulo, do Estado de São Paulo, a gente também está fomentando a gestão regionalizada dos resíduos. E aí a gente vem desenvolvendo propostas junto. A gente tem 3 consórcios intermunicipais na região e um deles a gente está fomentando para que haja uma concessão bastante robusta que contemple soluções de aproveitamento de materiais. Além disso, a gente vê na logística reversa uma oportunidade de promover algumas mudanças de comportamento. Então, o nosso relatório de logística reversa, que é a responsabilidade estendida do produtor, né? Em outras palavras, o nosso último relatório, a gente trouxe também o reuso. Então, os materiais que foram reutilizados fizeram parte dessa conta de destinação adequada, de logística reversa. Então, e aí nos diz muita coisa. A gente só conseguiu algum dado de reuso no vidro. Então, isso dá algumas indicações. Eu imagino que também oportunize o mercado de vislumbrar outras opções de usos e consumos.
Perfect. Thank you for that. So I think we are being nudged to jump a little bit. So Jason, I think just coming to you, and I know we had planned some additional questions. So if the panel doesn't mind, maybe we bring it to a close with the last question to Jason. Would you like to provide more information on the Plastics Coalition and potentially how local and subnational governments could integrate and interact with this?
Com certeza, muito obrigado. Vou falar rapidamente, só para dizer que, como falei, a coalição é realmente uma oportunidade para compartilhar informação e boas práticas. Então, o objetivo da coalição é realmente para que os governos locais e subnacionais falem de uma voz unificada e apelem a um instrumento internacional sobre a poluição plástica que reconheça as cidades e os governos subnacionais como atores-chave de implementação desse instrumento. Por isso que o objetivo também é de aumentar essa voz, então o número de membros antes da próxima e da última rodada de negociações que vai acontecer em Busan, em Coreia do Sul, em novembro. Então, um número maior de signatários legitimará a coalição e nos permitirá sermos mais influentes e defendermos a nossa posição junto dos Estados-membros. Então, como vocês podem ver, aqui ainda está aberta a coalição está aberta para signatários de todas as cidades interessadas, os governos locais e os governos subnacionais também. E podem visitar o site e para obter mais informação, e também podem falar comigo, podem falar com meu colega Rafael que está trabalhando comigo no escritório, e também com a delegada da Catalunha no Brasil que está aqui conosco também.
Perfect, Jason. Thank you for that. We had a little, if we were ahead of schedule, but we are definitely not ahead of schedule, so we're going to skip a few things. Apologies to the panel that we skipped the questions. Thank you very much for those insights. We will be doing a round of questions, but slightly later. That'll be facilitated by Paul. So I'd like to thank you for your inputs. Maybe a round of applause. Great. And now for the fun part. I'd like to now ask ICLEI's Secretary General, Gino van Begen, to please join us on stage to briefly explain why cities are signing up to the local and subnational government's coalition on plastic pollution. And thereafter, we go into a signing ceremony for a few cities that are signing up. If we can give a round of applause to Gino to welcome into stage. Thank you. I've got one.
All right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I think that this was really a very interesting panel. It illustrates the wealth of knowledge that is available in our cities and our subnational governments. It was great, and a big thank you to all of the panelists to share that knowledge with all of us here. And I think that that was just the tip of the iceberg of what is actually available. As we have just heard, ICLEI, together with the governments of Quebec and Catalonia, as well as with UCLG, launched the local and subnational governments coalition to end plastics pollution in April 2024, just before the INC 4. This coalition was initially conceptualized in Nairobi during INC 3 and is made possible due to a broad network of partners, which includes the Global Cities Hub, C40, Regions 4, WWF, and in collaboration with UNEP and UN Habitat. Our coalition is a vehicle that will have a lifespan until the end of the plastics treaty negotiation process, and its purpose is to ensure that the major points and considerations of local and subnational governments are amplified by as many cities and subnational governments as possible. This amplification primarily includes signing up to the coalition, but also speaking about plastics pollution and its harmful impacts as often as possible. The idea of our coalition is that the negotiating UN member states hear our points more often and from many more local and subnational governments, and so that they become more open to the details that we put forward by our experts and also by other member states. So we are advocating to include concrete operational aspects in the treaty so that this can enable cities and subnationals to contribute effectively to eliminate the plastics pollution. Thus far, numerous cities from all around the world, including Montreal in Canada and Renka in Chile and Stockholm in Sweden, have signed up the coalition. Today, I'm very pleased to announce that at this ICLEI World Congress here in São Paulo, a few more visionary local and subnational governments will join this coalition. When a single voice is added to the others, one at a time, this will eventually create a groundswell that illustrates how local and subnational governments are not sitting idle along the river and watching plastics pollution float by. Instead, they are actively participating to put the necessary enabling elements in place so that we can eliminate plastics from our rivers and from our environment. Therefore, I would like to invite my colleagues from Quebec, Jason Node, and from Catalonia, Paula Mellich, to join me here on the stage to welcome new signatories. Please join me here. And then I would like to invite the following colleagues from the following cities and subnational governments to also join us here on the stage to sign up to the declaration. First, Mariana Maia, Solid Waste Superintendent from the state of Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. Stay with us here. Stay with us here. Next, I would like to call upon Dongwan Lee, Mayor of Goyan Special City in South Korea. Hello, nice to see you again. Here. Thank you very much. Please join us here on the stage. Next, I would like to call upon Aaron Brackett, Mayor of the City of Boulder in the United States. Good to see you again. That was very good to see you. Please, if you can stand here. Thank you. Please join us. Next, I call upon Ms. Ana Liga Mora, Secretary of Environment from the city of Medellin, Colombia. Good afternoon. Thank you so much. Thank you. Here. Please join us on the stage over there. You can leave it. Oh no, you can take it. Take it. No, please go over there because we have a little bit of space. Yeah. Yeah. Oh no, first, yeah. Sorry. And then we are requesting Manuela Alvarez, Councillor of the City of Matosinhos in Portugal, to join us. Please. Thank you so much. Thank you. Please join us over there. Yeah. And now I have just the four that I will just announce, right? And then we have a picture? Okay. And then there are 4 other mayors that have signed up today but are not able to be with us here on the stage. This is Madam Minna Arve, the mayor of Turku, Finland, and ICLEI's first vice president. Mr. Sanjin Chin from Songnam City in South Korea. Ernest Arthur, mayor of Cape Coast, Ghana, who is speaking another session, by the way. And Mrs. Regina Bakite, who is mayor of Nansana in Uganda. Congratulations. Are we having our picture now first? Okay.
Great. I think a lot of hard work has gone into bringing the coalition together over many months, and at every intervention or activity event like this, the more cities that sign up, the stronger the voice gets at an international level of local and subnational governments. Can everybody still hear me perfectly? Okay, great. We are running a little bit behind time, but please bear with us, and you will be rewarded afterwards. I'm certain of it. I just don't know how yet. We'd now like to jump to part 2 of the agenda, and I'd like to now invite Olga Horn to the stage. We'll be doing a deep dive on the GIZ program called Circular City Labs, specifically contextualizing and talking about the importance of reuse. Olga is a senior officer at the ICLEI World Secretariat. Her work focuses on mainstreaming and promoting nature-based solutions, social equity, and circular development, including reuse specifically. Over to you, Olga. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks so much. Great. So like my colleague Magash, I also brought a little prop. I think it's maybe a bit more appealing than the 6 or I don't know how many plastic bottles you had. But anyway, so this is a classic reusable packaging system that we'll now be delving deeper into. So yeah, as Magash kindly introduced, I'll be providing a deep dive into the Circular City Labs project. And so here we focus specifically on testing reusable packaging systems. It's a project that is being implemented by GIZ in collaboration with ICLEI and with other partners. So what do we mean when we talk about reusable packaging systems? So I already showed this prop to you. So here we really look at systems that are designed to be used multiple times for the same purpose that they were originally conceived. So we're really looking at how these can then be cleaned and refilled to then be reused over and over and over again before then finally being actually recycled. So we try to basically prevent the waste from occurring in the first place by trying to keep the resource in the system for as long as possible. And so there are a lot of different examples of what these reusable packaging systems could look like. Here you have a few. For example, I think the ones that are most known are usually like these coffee cups, but also we have reusable containers for food, for those of us that like to get takeaway or that like to have their coffee to go. However, there are also other types of solutions. So, for example, reusable bottles for hygienic products or for cosmetics. Then also linen bags, as you can see, for bread and bread and buns, as well as, and also when we look at delivery, and I think also especially the increase in online purchases, so how we can maybe there look at these reusable delivery solutions as an alternative to the current packaging systems that are basically then being discarded and ideally at least recycled. So in the Circular City Labs project, the overall goal is really to try to reduce greenhouse gas emissions through waste prevention. So here, this obviously then through the testing different types of reusable packaging systems by working with SMEs, with small, medium-sized companies in 3 different project cities, and these are Tirana in Albania, Tbilisi in Georgia, as well as in Medellin in Colombia. And the idea here is to look at the sectors that are most relevant and most important in the local context, and where we can really kind of try and test these solutions and then hopefully also then scale them throughout the city. And another important component of the project is also to really focus on strengthening the role of female entrepreneurship and in general the circular economy lens throughout the city. So the project kind of has 2 core pillars. So one is obviously trying to work with the private sector, trying to work with different types of SMEs to, in the form of an accelerator program, to kind of support them in their journeys as they're trying to develop and scale their products. And so here, again, the focus is really on different types of SMEs, and especially those that are female-led. And then we as ICLEI, we focus a bit more on obviously the role of the municipalities and how these can be strengthened and how their capacity can be enhanced to really support these then reusable package system solutions from the private sector. And then an overarching idea is also to obviously raise awareness in general about reusable packaging systems, because quite often when we think of reuse, we kind of default to talk about recycling. But here again, we really want to try to emphasize the fact that we're trying to not actually get to the stage of recycling, but to really keep the resources in the loop as long as possible. So just a little bit of an overview of the project cities. So in Tbilisi, Georgia, the country, which is the capital of or the city, which is the capital of the country, is the largest consumer of packaging in the country. A circularity mapping report found out that only 1.3% of all the resource streams are actually circular, so a lot of potential and also a lot of impact that can be made there, because the municipal waste management system still largely relies on landfilling. So, but there are opportunities to then work with the city in terms of the action plan that they have been developing, and in the GIZ-CCL project, we're specifically looking at providing them with capacity building on circular economy training, on the formulation of the circular economy vision for their city, with again a specific focus on reusable packaging systems. Then in Tirana, the situation is similar. So also here, obviously the city being the capital is the largest consumer of packaging in the country, and it has very low levels of recycling. So around 80% of the total amount of municipal waste is deposited in landfills, and at present there are no specific reuse policies in place. So here, ICLEI and the GIZ-CCL project, we're working with the city to provide them with capacity building and to also with project development assistance for then launching these or trying to upscale these reuse projects. And here also the city of Tirana will be the challenge owner, so to really then work with the SMEs that have been selected as part of the project activities. So next, I would actually like to invite Ana Lilia Mora to the stage. She's the Secretary of Environment of the city of Medellin. She's an environmental engineer by training, and has over 22 years of working experience in the private and public sector, where she's contributed to improving processes and establishing programs that advance sustainable development. So as I mentioned, Medellin is one of the cities that were actually, or we can sit down here maybe to have a bit more of a conversation now. Great, so thanks so much for joining me on stage and joining us here in Sao Paulo, frankly. So it's really nice to have you here. Have a couple of questions for you. So in terms of the waste, and especially the waste attributed to then these disposable systems, what is the extent of the single-use packaging problem in Medellin? Could you contextualize it a bit more for us?
Bueno, para todos, ¿me escuchan? Aló, ya. Bueno, un saludo muy especial para todos. Muchas gracias a ICLEI, por supuesto, a GIZ, bueno, a la localidad por invitarnos. Es una gran oportunidad para nosotros desde Medellín poder contar qué estamos haciendo, pero también esos desafíos y esos retos que tenemos. Nosotros, gracias a esas medidas de cooperación con GIZ y con ICLEI, pues hemos venido ya trabajando en enfocarnos en un aspecto que, digamos, a nivel global creo que poco se ha visibilizado. Hemos hablado por décadas y nos sigue faltando mucho respecto al reciclaje, al aprovechamiento, pero en el tema o digamos en lo asociado al reuso está todo por hacer. Nosotros en Medellín tenemos unas condiciones que nos retan demasiado. Nosotros generamos en el año casi que 800.000 toneladas de residuos, de los cuales estamos aprovechando en el momento por el orden del 29%. Nosotros estamos empezando, este es el año en que estamos empezando una nueva administración del municipio de Medellín y nos hemos retado a llegar al 48%. Digamos que en términos del material reciclable, pues digamos que tenemos un comportamiento mucho más positivo, pero en términos del material orgánico tenemos todo por hacer. Y en el componente del reuso, pues digamos que hay que decirlo, ustedes nos han hecho visibilizar la situación y hoy podemos decir que tenemos un camino pues allanado, pero que sobre todo en el sector industrial, que es el que más le está aportando, digamos, a la generación de plástico, nosotros podemos decir que aproximadamente el 22% de los residuos que genera el sector no residencial en Medellín, en nuestra ciudad, está asociado al plástico. Y en lo residencial el 11% es plástico, o sea que ahí ya tenemos, digamos, una ruta muy clara. Estamos enfocándonos en el sector industrial, que es el que más, digamos, le está aportando allí, en el sector institucional, que también es uno de los que más aporta, y en el sector comercial. ¿Y cómo lo estamos haciendo, Olga, y a todos los que hoy nos acompañan? Generamos un mecanismo de gobernanza frente a toda la integralidad de lo que es la economía circular y generamos un instrumento que operativiza esa buena voluntad y es con indicadores precisos, que lo hemos denominado el manifiesto verde. Ese manifiesto verde incluye una batería de indicadores donde le está diciendo a cada empresa, bueno, usted tiene una línea base, usted está en este nivel de reuso, de reciclaje, de aprovechamiento en general, y cuál es el reto, cuál es la meta, y los estamos midiendo. Digamos que ese es un ejercicio que empezamos con esta administración, con nuestro alcalde Federico Gutiérrez, el 1 de enero, y ya vamos, digamos, en varios acuerdos, en varios manifiestos verdes, que lo virtuoso del instrumento es que pasamos de una buena voluntad, de un decálogo, de una firma, que es muy importante dar ese primer paso, y lo llevamos a la acción, donde estamos trabajando con las agremiaciones, o sea, con esas instituciones que agrupan el sector productivo, el sector de servicios, el sector de los centros comerciales, de las plazas de mercado, y los llevamos para que se comprometan de manera específica en lo que para nosotros es un reto. Específicamente, ahí queremos nosotros empezar a dar pasos importantes con ustedes en el reuso.
Okay, great, thanks. I feel that you actually already answered all my questions, but anyway, so where do you actually view the biggest challenge in addressing the single-use packaging problem in Medellin? Like, is there a specific sector that you would like to, well, I guess paint a picture on, like, what is really pressing?
Por supuesto, por supuesto. El principal desafío, y ahorita lo enunciaban algunos de los panelistas, es digamos, los comportamientos, lograr que permeemos el comportamiento del consumidor, en la medida en que el consumidor exija y se incorporen este tipo de prácticas del retorno. Nosotros en nuestra ciudad lo vivíamos hace décadas, donde por ejemplo la leche, nosotros no la comprábamos ni en caja ni en bolsa, sino que pasaba el carro, nos vendía la leche y entregábamos nuevamente la botella de vidrio. Eso ya lo hemos hecho, sino que nos toca retornar, vale el término, a esas prácticas, pero eso nace del ciudadano. Nosotros venimos en un proceso de una campaña donde involucramos 10 comportamientos ciudadanos, uno de esos enfocados a esas buenas prácticas ambientales del reuso, del reciclaje, y ahorita lo anunciaba en otro espacio, también de dar un paso, digamos, inicial, y es no generar el residuo y hacer un aprovechamiento directo, y ahí se mezcla un programa que no lo hemos anunciado en este espacio, sino en otro panel, que es el cero hambre, cómo también aportarle a la seguridad alimentaria, no generando residuos. Pero en el término puntual de los empaques, nosotros estamos fundamentando la estrategia con el sector industrial y con todos los sectores realmente en la cultura ciudadana, en llegar al comportamiento de cada uno de nosotros a requerir ese tipo de prácticas, y eso hará que tomemos la decisión como consumidor de qué servicio y de qué producto escoger.
Yeah, thanks. I think very valuable. I mean, consumer behavior is such a important part of it. Like, we really need to make it very easy for the consumers to make the right decision, to be able to return the products in a way that is actually easy and incorporable in their daily lives. So now flipping the question, where do you see the biggest opportunity for Medellin to actually spur reuse, and maybe also what are some of the, or where do you also see your role as a city to kind of spur the reuse revolution?
Bueno, la cooperación y estos espacios permiten realmente a uno inspirarse y llevar propuestas a la ciudad. Las oportunidades son muchas en la línea de generar nuevas líneas de negocio. Nosotros creemos en la línea de los negocios verdes, es decir, el biocomercio y todo lo que se genera a partir del reuso, que también va invitando a otros sectores productivos a reinventarse. Nosotros somos un distrito de ciencia, tecnología e innovación en Medellín. Tenemos dentro del conglomerado una institución que se llama Ruta N, que es la encargada, digamos, de todo el componente científico, y con ellos se viene trabajando, y ya incluso hay varios ejercicios de innovación frente a algunas líneas de negocio que permitan el retorno, que permitan el reuso, que permitan el reciclaje, y nosotros lo vemos como la gran oportunidad. Es más, dentro del instrumento que tiene nuestro alcalde en la ciudad para trabajar estos 4 años, incluimos una línea, un programa específico para economía circular y para la creación de negocios o empleos verdes a partir de estas oportunidades. Y tú ahorita lo decías también, a partir de un enfoque también de género. Queremos que las mujeres se empoderen, que también sea una oportunidad para su independencia económica, para su apropiación, y a partir de eso también transformar desde lo social. O sea que la oportunidad, digamos, que es materializar el concepto de desarrollo sostenible, porque a partir de estas líneas de negocio nuevas, pues se aporta en lo social, se aporta en lo económico y por supuesto en esos desafíos ambientales.
Great, thanks so much. Yeah, I think especially now that you also touched upon the green jobs that could potentially be created to that, which is obviously very important also, no, to work with the different SMEs and try to really scale that. So thanks so much, and we look forward to continuing then working with you on this project. Thank you.
Muchas gracias a todos por el espacio.
Great. Thank you for that discussion. Very insightful. Next, I would like to invite Mayor Lee to the stage to deliver his presentation. Mayor Lee currently serves as the mayor of Goyang Special City, holding a PhD in urban engineering, a master's in urban planning, and a bachelor's in architectural engineering. He is equipped with a rich scientific background and expertise in the field of sustainable urban development. Please, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you.
It is just here.
Yeah.
So, do you have...
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and my fellow ICLEI members. I'm Dong-an from Goyang Special City, Republic of Korea. It is a great honor to represent Korea at this session of the ICLEI World Congress 2024. I am especially delighted to participate in the launch of the local and sub-national government coalition to end plastic pollution. I believe many of you may not be familiar with Goyang City. Allow me to briefly introduce it. Goyang is a large city with a population of over 1 million people and a balance of urban and natural areas. Last year, the ICLEI Korea office moved to our city. Since then, we have been actively collaborating with the ICLEI Korea office as a member of KXCOM. In Korea, local governments handle household waste. We maximize recycling and then incinerate or landfill what cannot be recycled. Our city generates less garbage per capita than the country, but the recycling rate of household waste in our city is low. So, we need to increase the recycling rate of household waste. To reduce the household garbage, we have enacted ordinances and legal basis for related projects. Additionally, we have signed a number of business agreements with the private sector to establish governance. Targeting 19 coffee shops around the Goyang City Hall, our city promoted the use of the reusable cups of guest owner cups. In the coffee shops of takeaway, such as incentive or price discount. Hygiene was our top priority throughout the entire process, especially considering the hygiene concerns raised by the COVID-19 pandemic. Another project we pursued was inspired by the increasing trend of online shopping. While online shopping initially focused on industrial goods, it has expanded to include fresh grocery shopping. On some common item in fresh produce deliveries is ice packs, which pose challenges for waste management due to their non-biodegradable nature. Ice packs primarily consist of super absorbent polymers which do not dissolve in water, burn in fire, or decompose easily. Improper disposal of shape can lead to various environmental pollutants, including microplastics in water bodies. To address this issue, Goyang City installed 16 6 collection bins city-wide and initiated a project to reuse ice packs. Citizens can deposit the ice packs in designated bins and waste management companies handle the collection, cleaning and redistribution process. The project has received significant support from citizens. Last year, we established a system where collected ice packs are cleaned by elderly job creation organizations and then redistributed to traditional markets. This initiative not only contributed to environmental protection, but also supported elderly individuals who have been economically marginalized. Lastly, we made efforts to change the mindset of our citizens. We recruited resource circulation activists and conducted educational campaigns to promote proper waste separation and reduce waste generation. Furthermore, we launched a plastic zero campaign targeting citizens of all ages and conducted environmental education tailored to different age groups. Thanks to these efforts, Goyang City was able to win the top prize in the local government competition for recycling sponsored by the Ministry of Environment last year. I believe that everyone here is making efforts in their respective positions to achieve sustainable resource circulation and eventually transform into carbon neutral cities. Let us continue our efforts to create a better tomorrow than yesterday. Thank you.
Our last speaker for this evening is Mayor Aaron Brockett from Boulder, out in the USA. Mayor Brockett grew up in the small college town of Sewanee, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, in Tennessee, I presume, here in Tennessee. He attended Swarthmore College in Pennsylvania, where he majored in music, and I believe shortly after met your future wife there as well. After serving 5 years on the city's planning board, Mayor Brockett was first elected to the City Council in 2015, was re-elected in 2019, and became mayor in 2021. Mayor, thank you for joining us, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Mangesh. All right, hello everyone. It's wonderful to be here with you today, recognizing that I'm the only thing in between you and happy hour. I'll try to be a little bit brisk here. To talk a little bit about the City of Boulder's zero waste efforts. And just to give you a little bit of context for our city, it's a small city, just 10% the size of Goyang. Small but mighty though, we have always been a leader as much as we could in environmental sustainability. And we're nestled at the foot of the Rocky Mountains with beautiful mountain views, and also have the University of Colorado, which is the state of Colorado's premier research university. Don't tell CSU I said that. Okay, so we have been on this zero waste journey for a long time. We, in 1976, were one of the very first cities in the United States to have curbside recycling. And in 1989, we took an early step forward as well by implementing our first trash tax. Again, one of the first in the country of the United States. And with that, what we did is that we made recycling free while we added a tax onto collections for landfills. So that incentivized recycling while increasing the cost, by increasing the cost of landfill. And then in 2006, we passed a zero waste resolution to move towards zero waste and have been working hard on that ever since. And so our zero waste vision includes multiple platforms. First of all, it's about infrastructure and access for all. We want to make sure that no one is left behind in our city, including absolutely not our lower income and marginalized communities. But there are really large challenges to this. So for example, currently our economy is set up in a linear way. Something's produced, you use it, you throw it away. We have to convert that, we've seen great diagrams about this already, into recycling, but even more into a circular economy where the outputs of our waste stream become the inputs of the next generation. Thank you. And we also have to think about the impacts of some of our challenges here. Like for example, our Boulder Recycling Center is very successful, but the plastic bags will gum up the works and prevent it from functioning and bringing the utilization way down. So I talked about our circular economy vision, and so we're thinking about how we can incorporate these things into that circular economy. And I'll just make sure I got yes. It's about reducing our plastic use, not just recycling, but reducing those uses and working into that circular economy. So we worked with a consulting firm recently to evaluate our current practices and then recommend our next steps. So I'll talk a little bit about that. So in 2012, we added a 10-cent disposable bag fee. And a lot of jurisdictions have done this, but we were, again, one of the first in the country of the United States to do that. And an important part of this is the equity piece of this, because that hits our lower income consumers much harder than our higher income consumers. So we also offered free reusable bags at our grocery stores, but also specifically in our lower income housing projects. And we gave those out for free so that people would have access to those. And that actually reduced plastic bag use by 70%, which was a huge jump. And that really helped with our recycling program as well, as I mentioned before. But a key piece that I'll hit on here is this has to be done on a cross-jurisdictional level. And so we worked with our partners at the state. And I'll mention that actually one of our previous mayors, Suzanne Jones, is the head of our local recycling nonprofit. And so we worked with our state partners to implement a bill at the state level that is imposing a statewide bag fee, but is actually moving towards outlawing plastic bags entirely, as well as polystyrene food containers. So that's going to be another big step forward, not just for the city of Boulder, but for the entire state of Colorado. And so there's a lot of words up here. But what this means is that we want to make direct financial incentives to move people in this direction. And so we've done this in a few different ways in terms of grant funding for particular projects and flexible reuse incentives. And then what we're trying to do is move our small businesses in this reusable container direction, and so offering them direct cash incentives to do so, and also incentives of other kinds to encourage them to take part in these programs to get those off the ground. And so this is an important part of these public-private partnerships. So we're working with local reusable container programs called Our World and Hiccup. So those are for-profit initiatives, and then we're working with them on how do we get their products into our restaurants and our cafes. And so our direct incentives have helped with this, but what we're finding is it's only a drop in the proverbial reusable cup to make that happen, and we need to take it to the next level. So this is about policy driving change. So we as a city council have mandated moves in this direction in the past, but up until recently, we could only go so far because the state government wouldn't allow us to make preemptions. They preempted us from passing restrictions around plastics. But again, working with our state partners, we were able to get state law changed in the last couple of years. So we're now going to be able to move towards a regulatory approach. So we're looking at a carrot and a stick. So where we will be able to say, for example, to mandate that a restaurant have reusable options and not just disposable ones, while offering them incentives and assistance to enable that to happen. So it's about combining all of those pieces together. So the thing that I'll leave you with is that a government can't just do it by itself in terms of directly funding these initiatives. We have to engage with the private sector and with the nonprofit sector to come up with a combination of policies, regulations, incentives, and direct contributions to move us into that zero waste future that all of us here I know are working on and are questing towards. So thanks so much for having me. It's been wonderful to be here with you, and have a fantastic day.
Whoops. Take these up. Thanks, Mayor Brockett, very much. I am the true barrier between us and drinks. And I've been requested to provide a very short wrap-up about what the key ideas are that have been shared today. And I bet that what I would suggest about how you end plastic pollution or improve circularity, if I were to come up with 3 principles, I don't think you would really expect them after such fabulous technical presentations. They are, from listening to our speakers, trust, culture, and simplicity. Trust, culture, and simplicity. Okay, bye. And I think what's been really interesting is to see how each of these play in all these different contexts. We've heard from many Brazilian governments about the burden of plastic waste and waste in general, the need to build technical capacity in the systems, and most importantly, doing that in a way that builds trust by citizens in that very system. You cannot create a separation at source system and then lump all of the plastic into the same van. How do you build trust with communities? We've heard from all our speakers about public-private partnerships. How do you build trust with different sectors? In terms of culture, our colleague from the state of Rio, Mariana Maya, remarked about the need to change cultures and change worldviews, and that's part of this trust journey. As part of that, from Deltares, we heard about the need to redesign packaging with reference to different contexts. How do you engage with the various different technical systems and cultural practices in each of these different contexts? And finally, in simplicity, we've heard a set of really fabulous examples, particularly from our last 2 mayors, around reusable cups. A very simple intervention and quite affordable. $5,000 for a first pilot to actually test this idea, that's fabulous. The idea of a simple intervention to change an entire system. Normally, particularly seeing Boulder's amazing schematics, we look at a system and get paralyzed instantly. But by starting with something very simple like a tax on trash, not on recycling, you've got a very simple intervention with multiple follow-up opportunities that come afterwards. In Korea, investing in reusable ice packs gives us co-benefits of protecting the environment, supporting vendors with a specific need of cooling, and providing jobs. So, trust, culture, and simplicity. Thank you very much. Please do stay and engage with each other as we go towards drinks together. My name is Paul Curry. I'm part of ICLEI Africa. I work on circularity. Sorry for not introducing myself. Enjoy the day.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think we will find one